Good morning, everybody. It's Bryan Caprice from Keep Trading Simple, and welcome to our Tuesday Trade Talk. So, those of you that were here yesterday know that obviously we had kind of the literal bombshell of a weekend with oil just going absolutely crazy. Saudi Arabia basically lost half their production. It was 5% of the overall world production. So that really kind of is what all the markets were more or less focused on yesterday. And again, if you guys saw any of the news releases, you guys saw that was I think it was the largest movement ever in oil in one day. So that kind of gripped the markets. And again, we'll kind of break it down what we're seeing today in the markets. I will touch on oil, but I'm not a specialist in oil, so I don't want to focus too much on it, but I can give you kind of my opinions and where I see it on the global stage. So we should have a pretty exciting next half hour. Today is not a big news day whatsoever. So again, I will kind of set you up for the rest of the news weeks for this week of where we're looking in areas that I see, offer some pretty good potential. And then again, how you play it is entirely up to you with your skill set with Nadex. So before we begin, if there's anybody that's new here, welcome. I really appreciate you guys coming out. I like to do these early in the morning because one, it's before news, but two, for people that work, it's a time that they can jump on before news and still be engaged with live analysis in the markets and kind of keep on their path and a lot of times their goal to become a full-time trader one day. So as I mentioned, I'm the president and CEO of Keep Trading Simple, and my style of trading is different than a lot of others. I don't use indicators. I remove a lot of the distractions, and it's something that I find that when you remove those things, trading becomes a lot, you put yourself in a much better position. I'm not also a trader that sits in front of the computer for 15 and 16 hours a day. I believe in using technology, finding areas that have potential reversals, and then setting the kind of right asset to take advantage of it. I'm a big believer in setting alerts. So if you have a job and you still can have your phone inside, or even can get emails, you can trade the way that I trade. It's about setting levels, getting alerts, coming back. If this, then that type trading. So you'll notice I don't, there's no real indicators on my charts or anything. I do lines, boxes, kind of just basic stuff to draw my attention towards certain areas, but that's about it. So it's something it's rather easy. I have created different programs for Nadex or Nadex-based classes, 30-minute traders, 5-minute binary classes. And again, these are predominantly created for traders with full-time jobs that can't be there at all times, but anybody can really trade them. I do have an advisory background, so my opinions today that I will give you guys about oil, a lot of it actually came from being in the advisory world. Not that I traded oil over there, but again, it's just a different type of thinking, being external versus being internal and thinking about what it takes for money to move around, how the flow of money goes back and forth from financial institutions and back again. But then again, also looking at that from a trader standpoint. I have traveled around. Again, I will give you some information about why this oil kind of situation is actually great for Canada right now. Again, traveling back and forth, I understand that market as well. So I find that it's definitely been helpful. And again, obviously, I'm very proud of my kids. There's the two boys on the outside are actually twins. The little one is actually the oldest one, and then the little girl, she is now, I guess, 16 months now and running everywhere. And doctor said last week she's going to be talking very, very soon. So we're at the grunting stage, everything. Doctor said be prepared. She's going to start talking. So pretty soon you will have me and probably her on webinars because she is all about the computer, all about charts, and she can't wait to get involved. So I thought it was going to be Asher, the one over here on the left, but I think it's going to be Jen. She's going to be the one that'll be trading by the time she's 6. Okay. Let's go through the Nadex risk disclaimer before I start talking about any type of setups or opportunities. Trading on Nadex involves financial risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. The information presented here is for information and education purposes only and should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Any trading decisions that you make are solely your responsibility, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Now, I'm not going to talk about any results today. Nadex contracts are based on underlying asset classes, including Forex, stock index futures, and commodity futures. Again, we'll talk about oil. Trading can be volatile, and investors risk losing their investment on any given transaction. However, and this is extremely important that you guys understand this, especially in the environment we're in right now. However, the design of Nadex contracts ensures that investors cannot lose more than the cost to enter the transaction. Nadex is subject to U.S. regulatory oversight by the CFTC. Okay, now, whenever you hear about news, and you guys know, if you know anything about me, if you've attended my Monday morning market breakdowns or any of my special webinars that I've conducted, you'll know that I absolutely love news trading. And the biggest benefit for me for news trading is the fact, this second statement right here about not being able to lose more than the cost to enter the transaction. Okay, absolutely love it. Glad a lot of you understand that. And again, to me, that's a huge, huge perk. All right. So as I mentioned before, these were my top 3. I'm not going to go crazy in detail into them. Again, it is Tuesday today. Tomorrow we have the Fed funds rate. I expect there to be some movement around that. And again, we're already expecting a 0.25 drop. Just be aware of that again, it's already in there. The market is prepared for that one, but there is typically some retail trader reaction. And then sometimes the comments that they make are actually what sends the market flying in opposite directions of where you think it may be going. Also going into Thursday morning, early on, you have some pound news. Retail sales is one of the high probability news releases. It actually has a miss rate of, I believe, I don't have my sheet up right now, but I believe it's about 85% is where they're off on their forecast. So a lot of times retail sales offers a pretty nice kind of mover as far as a news release goes. It is early, I know that, but again, you can also set your trades up the night before if you'd like. I have a funny statement with my students about waking up in the green. That's how you do it, is setting those up, in advance. On Wednesday as well, this time at night, 9:30 p.m., we have the employment change, basically kind of Australia's version of non-farm payroll. That'll be Wednesday evening, and again, that is another one that offers us kind of a high profile release or a high impact news release that offers a very nice bit of movement. Okay. Now, with that being said, let me bring in Forex Factory real fast. So as you guys can see, there's not really a lot of news today, right? Being Tuesday, this is the slow day of the week. Okay. Going into tomorrow is actually where all this red high impact news is, starting with the pound early in the morning. Then you have the CAD at 8:30. Then we have crude oil inventories right after that. Then you have all the FOMC at 2 p.m. and the rate cut. And then at night, we have GDP for New Zealand, which again can also be a very large mover. And then the Aussie news. So literally tomorrow is a day that every few hours there's a high impact news release that you can take advantage of something. So based off of where we are right now, and this is a scanner that I use. It's a quick way for me to kind of do intraday trading and determine trend. Just looking at kind of for lack of a better word, it's like a battle station, right? This scanner at the top is something that I use with these different time frames. I want to know what the percentage change is over a kind of a not extended period of time, because I'm only talking about a day, but it really is giving me a kind of an insight into how much movement have we had, okay? How much more is possible for the day? And you can see in the last 24 hours, we're actually pretty flat. Okay, the biggest mover right now is the dollar Swiss. Okay, and again, my opinion on why the dollar Swiss has not really gone anywhere is because we haven't sent troops, we haven't sent drones. There's been no Tomahawk missile strikes. There's been nothing. There's been no aggressor. Us retaliating back again. So that's really kind of what's putting us, really back here. And again, you're seeing that the dollar yen as well is up, about 40 pips, but. That's why we kind of see the dollar Swiss as being a big mover. Everything else is more or less flat, which I kind of expected. Again, there was a lot of movement early on going into Sunday night, and you have to be prepared for that. Yesterday was kind of weird because it's weird because when everybody was coming online, we were all in reactionary mode, right? We got the news on Saturday and Sunday, and it's like, well, I can't trade till Monday. U.S. traders come back online. What's going on? Woo! Oil's got the biggest day ever. And then everything just kind of went flat, right? And if you think about what type of catalyst we're bringing us into today, it's kind of the same idea, right? I mean, really no new, all the news was out yesterday morning. Everybody reacted to it, and then the market just kind of flatlined. What do we have today? What type of catalyst this morning? Nothing. Okay, there's really no news today that can really, again, let me click back so you guys can see it. There's really no news right here, right? That can really send us anywhere. I mean, German economic sentiment, great, wonderful. That's what's probably messing with the euro a little bit. But then, CAD manufacturing sales, it's a medium. It's okay for the CAD, right? We may see a little bit of movement, but it's not going to rock the entire currency world. Everything else in 24 hours, basically flat, okay? Now, with that being said, you may say, man, does that mean I shouldn't trade? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that there's probably a lot of smaller moves on smaller time frames, as well as different type of trade setups. I mean, one of the advantages of options is you have time value. Time value expires. You can use that if you know strategies on how to trade that, right? Like a butterfly, something along those lines. You can use that over here in Nadex, and that's where this kind of sideways market kind of helps out. And again, going into Wednesday, again, that's where you want to make sure that you are careful. Be ready. Okay, there's a lot of high impact news. This market is going to jump. Okay, so with that being said, oh, and by the way, no, I actually went over that. I'll cover the other piece of that later. So with that being said, let's dive into some of the charts. Let me start actually back at the top. and we'll talk about big levels. So I'm going to focus probably most on this bottom chart over here on the left-hand side. This is the 4-hour chart for what we see today, as well as what we can see the rest of the week. So looking at Aussie yen, one thing that I was looking at in this pair that I mentioned is, you guys, if you see this red line up here, up top, this is a selling zone in my, by my definition, in the daily, okay? Now, we ended last week there, so we were already starting to look for opportunities for us to go short in this pair. And you can see, we obviously had the gap and kind of an immediate retest. And normally for me, whenever I see a gap, I'm looking for gaps to get filled, okay? And, obviously the gap was unable to be filled. In this case, we never came back and were able to touch it. So as you can see over on the 4-hour, it's a little bit gappier. And again, that's because of the data feed coming in. But I was already starting to look for any type of, again, retracement on this end, all right? So that was one thing that was kind of like, where do we get in? And then the gap over here kind of got crazy. So you'll see right now, it's kind of stalling back and forth inside of this range. And again, I kind of somewhat expected that. There was going to be the initial reaction on Sunday and then the pullback. And we're really kind of stuck, So it is more or less sideways at this point. You're not really seeing, you're not seeing kind of crazy movement. One thing that you did see, and this is a smaller kind of trend. It's already gone now, but just for future reference, whenever you guys do see gaps, look for when things gap into zones, okay? You guys will see there, if we mark that off right there, okay? Got super, super close to it, but this is just kind of a learning thing. When you gap into zones that you've seen, prior zones, those are typically kind of takeoff points. And again, you guys can see we had some nice movement off of that, especially in a pair like this on a Sunday. You can get some nice action with Nadex. The volatility hasn't kicked in yet. There's some good opportunities on those if you look at them. But right now, again, sideways movement. As far as where we could pull back to, again, where this red line is cutting through is really where I see the best opportunity. I'd like it to really kind of pull back a little bit. Maybe one of these Australian news releases at night will give us that kind of push forward and give us this kind of this red kind of zone up here, right? If we get up there looking to sell, and that area for me is around 74.30ish. Again, filling that gap, kind of coming back up again. It's just been such a large push. We have had the the kind of kickback, although it kind of still looks strange that we have the green candle here and then the gap down and it's another green candle, and now we're seeing the red kind of pullback. And again, I think the market is getting back to where it was before we had the overall reaction. All right, so just keep an eye on that one. Looking at Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar basically had the same type of setup. It came back up again. This one, you guys can see it. It's actually blue. I meant to change this. Sorry about that. Red. So same situation. We had this level of basing, right? Large, fast push down, very, very strong level of basing, and then large, fast kind of move out back out of it again, right? That to me shows that where that level of basing is, there is an area of imbalance. Okay, areas of imbalance are where buyers and sellers hide their orders, particularly large money, institutions and banks. It came across, it literally tickled across. You guys can see it did here. And again, what is it doing? It's now starting to push back down again. And again, we had a bit of a gap over here, but again, this one is kind of off to the races. Would I enter it now? Probably not so much. It is pulling back. It is looking for more buyer or more sellers at this point. There is a bit of an order. Here's like the first pullback. This is kind of the first area. If you guys see kind of this salmon color over here, this is showing me where I have some unfilled orders. This is we're right in the area right now, but again, because of the time right now, U.S. traders are not online. It's before all news and everything. I wouldn't say, hey, listen, if price is being driven right now, it's moving. It's a trend reversal. We don't know yet. Looking at the 4 hours where I said I would spend most of my time. Again, impulse, corrective move, large impulse, and this is a correction move. Now, it is a very, very large push down. It didn't really run into anything. Let's see, what do we got? Let me throw horizontal line. Let's see what we actually ran into over here. What type of level? Yeah, it's in a little bit of a level right here, right? I mean, price did pull back and then it did launch. Okay, anytime you have this type of launch, you tend to see, there's definitely some buyers in there, most likely from that kind of zone, and that's probably that's kind of what we're tickling off of. So it's looking for more orders to push through. It's already made 2 attempts. Next attempt will be number 3. As you know, each attempt that it goes lower and lower and lower, it eats up more of those orders to go down. We'll see if it's able to stop right here. Again, this is the formation, this wick over wick here. 1 wick on the downside here, 1 wick on the top side. those are typically pretty good selling areas. And again, you can see the last time it hit here, it immediately shot back down. So we'll see. I could potentially be looking for probably a break of this area. I mentioned alerts earlier. If you want to set an alert, or you know how to set an alert, set one for this. Probably about, let's go down just a little bit below. Let's go. Let's see. Go in the upper end here. 68.29 for me. Again, every brokerage firm is slightly different. This is a data feed coming from Oanda. 68.28 would be an alert. That way I know that it's not only broken through this, but it's actually gone a little bit into the zone. That would be a good trigger to say, hey, listen, you may want to come back, check this out. It's pushing back down again. If it doesn't, if it just continues to rally and retrace all the way up, not the end of the world as well. Okay, then again, you don't have to worry about it. You didn't have any risk on the trade. But again, this typically you may say, hey, listen, why aren't we retracing this one? It's a big push down over here. Well, shouldn't we be looking to retrace up? And it's not really news based, and it bounced off of a daily selling zone, right? So again, that's what's driving this to the downside. So we'll see. We're going to look for some sellers to step in, get a trigger, and then maybe step back into this one later. Okay. Looking at euro pound. Okay, euro pound. Again, this one, as I mentioned yesterday, this one actually did bounce off bottom area, right? This was an area we had some buyers in there. We were kind of trying to see if how valid and how strong those buyers were going to be. You can see on the daily, it's been a very, very healthy setup, right? Impulse corrections, impulse corrections, impulse corrections. And again, same thing. Large drop yesterday. There was an entry off of that, and it bounced exactly where we thought it would, right? This was a little 4-hour zone. It came up, it hit it super about 9 o'clock. And then, by the time we hit 5 p.m., it had already collapsed down. Pretty nice move in this one, right? Since that time, it has started to grind back up again, right? You can see that over here on the 30-minute. This dotted line here, that's the bottom of this box, FYI. Problem with this is you guys look over here on the daily. See where this came down and turned? If you look across to the left, you'll see that was a pretty nice pullback. And there is just a slight bit of basing right below it. So there's kind of what we would call a level on top of a level. I am still bullish. I do believe that the pound is going to continue being a bit bullish. Obviously, we've seen a huge pullback. I do believe with news this week, it will have some good data. As I said, I think it was overly beat up in the the last couple months, really. Well, I guess weeks, but I mean, basically this entire move up, right? I believe was a little bit overinflated. Okay, I don't think the pound was really any worse. Yes, Brexit was out there, and they weren't sure what Brexit was going to look like. We still don't know now what Brexit is going to look like. So for me, there's really nothing has changed, but you can see a movement of from the 92s all the way back down to the 88s. Okay. Right now, it's probably more weakness in the euro that's doing anything else. But again, I am definitely more, I'd say, tending to be bearish. I'm sorry, bullish for the pound, bearish for this pair. Just seeing any type of good data come in again. We do need to eat through these two levels. And then after we eat through those two levels, you guys can see over here, we got this kind of nice little, again, no strong wicks. It's just a slow grind heading up again. And that could potentially bring us back down to the 85 area. Okay, so that could be a 300 pip kind of grind back to the downside once we break this lower section here. Okay, and again, looking at the 30-minute, again, with no news, there's not really a whole lot of catalyst. We've been stuck between 85.50 and 85.90. So it's been about a 40 pip range that we were bouncing back and forth in. If we can get up in this range as well, I may be interested in taking like a smaller size position. And again, this is a Nadex based pair. You can look to take this. Ideally, I'd like us, if we can grind back up slow, if we can get back into this zone, this above 89 for news tomorrow, that's an ideal situation for me. I'm absolutely all over that. I love when we are sitting in a buying or selling zone right at news time. Okay, those are actually my favorite news trades to set up. So that's definitely something I would be looking for. And again, that data comes in super early. It's 4:30 a.m., but it doesn't mean you can't set the position early or set a limit order to have it enter the trade for you when it gets there. Okay. Going over to euro yen, as you guys know, again, the yen is associated more or less with the overall stock market. Stock market kind of died out on us. This one had a very, very fast retest yesterday. Again, this one about 4 o'clock in the morning is where this one kind of came up, popped and went. And again, just to stay consistent, I'm gonna try to do better, guys, keeping these things red so you guys can understand and not only learn from these, but then also kind of be able to look at a chart and say, oh, he sold because of X, Y, and Z. Okay. Since that time, again, we went down, we ended up running into an area. It was very small. Okay, it's kind of hard to see. Not surprised it turned here, right at the very, very bottom. It's kind of set up as a trap. And again, it just slow grinded back up again. So for me, where I'm looking is for price to come back up into here as one potential level for a reversal at 119.40. And then again, I'm still looking for something up here. Okay, I still think that that would be a valid zone. Okay, now that zone is also the gap up top. So in looking across at the 4-hour charts, kind of the same scenario. Again, you guys can see this. It came up and then again, 3 nice 12 hours basically of straight down. But again, I'm going to use my lower time frame to kind of lessen that risk. That's where we'd be here. Again, on this side, again, I'm looking for some up. That's where the gap started. Okay, so this orange and this orange is the same too. That's really where I'm looking for any type of reversal signal to be able to jump into this one. Again, set yourself an alert. You don't have to stand here and watch it and be like, oh God, I missed it. Set yourself an alert below it. That zone starts over at 119.64. Set yourself something at 119.55. It gives you about 9 pips alert. It gives you time to get back, analyze the chart at that time and say, okay, listen, I like this for a reversal. Is this a good spot? Was there basing below it? Would cause it to go this high? And then again, if it's something that you like, then you pull the trigger based off your analysis. But it's something that I'm definitely watching. To the downside, a little bit different. Again, we had this gigantic kind of spike candle. Looking back, you guys can see a little bit harder to analyze this one. Again, I can shrink it a little bit so you can see it more. Downside, biggest thing that I'm worried about right now is this area right here, okay, to the downside, okay? Actually, the top should be a little bit higher right there, okay? So those are this is kind of the top and bottom in this pair, and that bottom side for me starts at 118.50. It says 47, but again, 50 is just right above it, so I want to know. These are the 2 areas where I'm looking for buying and selling. And again, because of the gap and then because of this little hidden pattern right here, where price stopped and slowed down. On a lower time frame, you guys would see it would base or it's actually a pullback. The larger time frame, you have to use the wicks to be able to uncover it. So that's where I'm looking top and bottom on this pair for buying and selling. Looking at the euro dollar, get a quick drink of coffee. Sorry about that. Kind of a similar situation, right? We had this large pop up, kind of came across. This one did not have the same gap. It did not have the same type of retest that we saw last night. All right. Now, this one you guys can see on the way down. I mentioned those hidden patterns. You can see a little hidden pattern here, a little here, kind of right above where we are. There was a wick over wick here, and we saw price hit it and come back down again to grab more orders below. We kind of had a sandwiching effect because we had the wick over wick here, which it ran into, and then we had it down here. So it kind of hit it, went down and hit the other pattern, and then came up and hit it again, and that was enough to kind of eat through on its 3rd attempt. Again, attempt 1 is here. Attempt 2 is in this push up, right? That got pushed back down, and this is attempt 3. So now it's kind of bouncing off the bottom side. So I love this when it's in one solid candle, right? This is great. This is much harder to trade. Okay, this was actually the retest move to the downside, the retracement. This is the one we were taking. So again, this is a little interesting piece. This is a little piece, and this little piece. There's a couple different pieces in here, and that's why we haven't seen fast retrace movement back up again. Okay, it is looking for buyers. It's kind of limping. You guys will see on the 4-hour, we're seeing a lot of wick, right? A lot of wick here, a lot of wick in this one, right? This is a lot of indecision. Up, down, and the body is super, super tiny. And again, look on the daily. Looking on the daily, what is our trend right now? Okay, this is where this one you can say, okay, is this just purely kind of emotional kind of responses to what we had this weekend? Sure. I mean, this was last week, right? Again, this was news-based. And then kind of it's starting to retest and kind of come to the downside, which again, we expected. We were already, we were interested in being short this pair before the weekend happened. And then again, the weekend went crazy right here, right? But what is our overall trend? Okay. Our overall trend is basically sideways, right? Since last week, what have we done? We had a big red bar, right, from yesterday, but we had 2 greens the day prior, and then those greens were just barely outside the prior red move. So it's expanding a little bit, but I wouldn't say we're in a trending market like this. We are more or less sideways. I mean, if you go back to the 4th, price was at 110.29, and right now we're at 110.22. So it's been a bit choppy, right? A bit whipsaw-y back and forth. Because again, the European Union is one of those things that doesn't really have its own news. It doesn't have its own news releases. It will, and I mentioned before, retail sales is great. An example is for the euro, you need to rely upon German and French retail sales numbers. Okay, when you can get those, that's what's going to act as kind of a mover here. But besides this, it's all talks, right? when the European Central Bank speaks, that's about the best news we can get, or when they cut rates or anything, which the rates are already basically zero. So that's what we're looking for in this one. Not a lot of movement either way. I think this is going to be more of a U.S. pair. This will be a good trader tomorrow for the FOMC, the Fed funds rate cut. You will see some movement in that one. Today, with lack of stimulus, I think this one is going to be a grinder. I may just put my eyes on something else. If you guys are limited in your what you can look at, you're limited on time. Looking across the pound. So the pound came back up and it ran right into an area that we'd been looking for. Again, blue was a standard color that was using for all these, and then I created the red, so we will try to keep the reds in here. As you guys can see, not only did it hit that zone, it did pull back. We did have a bit of a retracement. Now, this retracement was very, very fast. Actually, this retracement level should have been there, okay, just a little bit higher. This is another one of the strategies that we trade. It is basically going through, it's called a momentum breakout. Again, this one retested the breakout. Again, very kind of extended range piece of this. Now, people see this chart and they're like, how the heck do you read anything from this? When price is here, it's all the way over here, it looks like it's broken. Well, I don't have the setting on that shows gaps as candles, but if you do have that setting, this is what you would have saw, right? This would have been bright red, okay? And this may be a little bit easier for you guys to understand, and you guys can do this as well, right? That is, I don't know why is it blue inside. That is technically what the candle looks like, right? Again, we close there. If you take that gap as a candle, then yeah, there's the closing, there's the opening. That's what it looks like, okay? So in this case, it's a standard formation that we use as far as breaking. You can see that there is a little white space right in here. This white space is looking what we were looking to retrace. Now again, was it a great setup? Sure. It hit a daily sell zone. Again, large movement in price came off of that area. It hit it on the 4-hour. It gapped down, it came up and retested the prior zone that was broken, and then that went to the races. Now, and what has it done now? Nothing. Okay, you guys can see. After its initial movement up, it kind of went down, made a new low, and it's just kind of been stuck. Okay, not out of the ordinary. Totally expected this one as well. Again, Monday with no news, Tuesday with no news, it's going to be slow. Wednesday, tomorrow morning, absolutely, without a doubt, this will have movement. Okay. Now, CPI is one of those ones. Let me drag Forex Factor in here real quick again. Again, if you're on the retracement, again, you'll kind of recognize some of this data, but you'll see it tends to be okay. But again, if it has any type of a miss, last time it was a miss, then it had two correct, and they had misses before. Again, this one has the potential to move large. Okay, the pair to trade that in would be this one. Okay, this is the main trading pair for news for the pound. Where this could potentially go to? Great question. One, it could bounce back up again and go back into this daily zone. And again, that would be up at the 135.04, or we could potentially go down and hit down here at this 132 range. Now, 132 is quite a large jump. You're talking about 200 pips to the downside. That may be a bit far just for this level of news. But again, you have a basing level here down at 133.57, and that's about 70 pips below where we are right now. That's probably a better kind of launching point than all the way down just on the near term. But a lot of that's going to depend on what happens in the next 24 hours until we get to that news release. If it just stays in this area, we may be fine. If we slowly grind back up today and we end up here, then that's one thing. If we slowly grind and we end up here, I'll mark this off. If we kind of end up down here, then again, that's an entirely another thing. So as far as news goes, I probably would not use this kind of orange zone again. I'd be using this as kind of a launching point from the downside. And then again, the gap, which starts up here at 135.06, would be where I'm looking for, kind of where this blue line is. That would be kind of a sell, top or bottom, for news tomorrow morning, okay, as well as retracements. Looking at pound dollar. Now, pound dollar has actually had almost as much movement as the pound yen in the last 24 hours. It's down -18 or -17 now, where the pound yen is up a little bit. So you can see this one is not as whippy, a little bit more trendy. Okay, this one definitely had a reversal. And again, this one is trading kind of without the influence of oil. Okay, you're not seeing the large gap, you're not seeing the big retracements. And what you are seeing though is, again, we came back up into a daily level. And again, that was on Friday. We launched into it right here. We were already looking to get short. Okay, on the 4-hour, again, we see it went very, very high and then started to kind of pull back again. Same thing. Over here, what did it do? Again, these lines are a little bit off. They were kind of supposed to be drawn from there. But we saw price kind of come down and kind of push across. First target would have been over here. Second target is right about here, and that's what you can see where price is kind of stuck at. And why did it stop here? Well, again, you guys see this pullback? Nice push up. Bit of a retest, and then boom, exploded back out of it, showing us that there were orders and some hidden orders stuck right in this area, and that's where we're stuck on. When US traders come online, we probably will see some movement off of this one. But again, if I'm looking for 4-hour zones for tomorrow, here's a couple zones that I'd be kind of watching out for. One, again, you got to look at this level right here. Oops, not that one. That was the wrong, not ruler, horizontal level. That's a takeoff point, right? We see price shot out of there. We already know that this level, oops, I wanted another one. We already know that this level is rock solid right here. So again, we got to see if we can clear that. And then looking to the top side, I mean, this is a nice little takeoff point here, but I would probably just use this little top section right here. Probably that level of basing right there on the top side. So these would be 3 areas. If we have price that spikes up, I'd be looking to, me personally, I'd be looking for retest entries in to kind of obviously retrace back down. 125.84. Where we are right now, obviously this zone needs to clear. If it starts to rally back up again during the day today, again, I'd be looking for any type of buys off of this lower level here at 124.08. If we grind through this level today, any push down into 123.50, again, that would be a downside level that I'd be potentially looking to get long in for any type of news burst. And the reason why is because, again, the last time price was here, it launched itself off pretty full. Again, whenever you see big money step in, price moves very, very fast from those areas. Okay, so that would be for CPI for tomorrow morning. Looking at dollar CAD, again, dollar CAD is exposed to oil, right? How's it exposed to oil? Canada is an oil exporter. Okay, they export basically everything to the United States, and then we refine it and send it back to them. This one is obviously very exposed. You can see absolutely huge gap in this one, right? Huge gap down, and it basically gapped right into a level of buying. You guys can see basing, pop. It gapped right back down, kind of popped up, grabbed some more orders, and then kind of came across. It did not make it all the way back to its gap. It has not filled its gap, okay? It has kind of gone halfway and then just stopped, all right? Now, there is a fair amount of CAD news this week as well. Starting tomorrow morning, CPI coming in. CPI is, again, that can be a big mover. On CAD, they're not very good. They've actually missed the last 3 forecasts have been off on CAD, and off by a pretty decent amount. They expected the forecast last time to be 0.1%. It was 0.5, which is actually a pretty big miss. With everything going on, obviously this can be a pretty nice mover tomorrow. Now, with this being said, we are kind of wedged right now, and I'm gonna do the same thing for you guys real fast. I'm looking at upper areas here, and I'm looking at lower areas down here. Okay, and we're kind of in no man's land right in the middle. Up top, I'm looking to get short, or I'm going to become more bearish biased. Down here, I'm going to become more bullish bearish. And again, you're looking at 132.80 on the top side, 132.20 on the downside. It's about a 60 pip range. The ATR for this pair is only 67. So again, if it goes to the top, yes, news can drive at 1 ATR to the downside. But right now, we're kind of smacking the, maybe a little bit above right middle. Middle being right here. We're a little bit above it right now, and we've been stuck there for hours, really since yesterday about noon. We haven't been able to leave that range. With lack of news today, I don't see there, minus a tweet from the president, I don't see this pair moving as much today. I'm more setting up for tomorrow, okay? Dollar Swiss, I mentioned it as well. Dollar Swiss is a pair right now. I warned my students last night. Again, we are in a sell zone. We are kind of upper ranges here. I'm leery about this pair right now because this pair, their economical news releases don't matter as much, but this is the flight to safety pair, okay? If suddenly today, if we reconned the rebels yesterday and we decide to send in drones today to go take out their drones, again, that will kind of put some, I don't know, it'll make some people nervous whenever we start talking about soldiers, retaliation, and that's where people start to go to safety. That will give, strength to the Swiss. It's been 3 days since that attack. We haven't really heard a lot about any type of retaliation, and I'm kind of surprised about that. Now, again, I'm not surprised because higher oil prices makes a lot of people a lot of money, so that may be one thing. But again, when you attack Saudi Arabia, they are kind of one of our strategic allies. I'm kind of surprised we haven't said anything yet. If there is a comment made, I see this pair kind of shooting down to the downside with kind of no rhyme or reason. Acts of God, war, those types of things are one of those things that kind of debunk technical analysis because it's such an emotional reaction, and it's kind of it's almost like an automatic, an automatic response. If somebody sent tanks across the border, bam, send money to the Swiss because they're neutral. We don't have to worry about any type of war exposure. So again, just being a bit cautious of this pair for me this week. If you guys see it and there's trade setups and you love it technically, go out there and trade it. Don't let me discourage you. I just know for me, there's been no response. Shutting down half of a country's oil production is kind of a big deal, even though it's kind of been downplayed again. A lot of move yesterday, and there's going to be a press conference. I just feel like there will be some type of military response back, and that will send this pair to the downside, and I'm just being cautious with it. Looking at dollar yen as the last one, again, this is going to be a proxy for the overall stock market. So this pair had an interesting setup. We had a bit of a sell zone. We had kind of a retrace off of it. It popped, it came down, it retested, and then again, kind of came back up again. So this one did fill its gap, okay? It kind of went back to business where it was before. It had not quite gotten all the way up to the daily area where I was looking to sell it. Okay, it got here, and it needed to go up to 108.50. So it needed to go, let's see, I'll put a horizontal line on this one for you. You guys can see at 105 or 108.50, it was super close. Okay, here was the kind of the weekend gap. Everybody was really, really nervous. It gapped down and it gapped right into kind of the level of basing here. Okay, you guys can see this level right over here is what it ran into. Again, retested up, popped back down again, and continued to push higher. So it's kind of back to exactly where we were on Friday. It got a bit choppy and got a bit slow. If you guys were getting frustrated yesterday with kind of some of the indices just kind of piddling out, that's kind of what this one did too. It stayed within, I mean, you guys can see where it is right now. Price here is at 108.12. Here was the peak at 108.20. So it just didn't do a whole lot. I mean, we were in a bit of a channel, but every 2 hours, 3 hours, we're moving about 10 pips. So it was more or less like watching paint dry. Not really the most fun scenario. And then we finally did have this burst, but we still didn't make it up to kind of where we were looking to sell. It's messing with you. It's close, right? It's right there. But again, for me, the trigger on this one is 108.50. Again, downside targets on this one. This wasn't a bad pop over here. If you do take something short, just be cautious around 107.75, about 75 pips below where that entry is. This is a nice pop. It kind of came back down, went lower, and then it launched. I think the zone, I believe the zone actually is going to be based off of this area right here. Okay, like I said, you guys can kind of see it right here. You guys see this formation here where we had this nice, again, it went down where the wick is, went up, went sideways, and then popped. If I block that area off, right in there, that's where you can see we've touched the very, very top of it. And again, this should be, okay, that's kind of what it popped off of. So any type of short, this is a profit target that I'm looking for. Not so much of a place to take a reversal, but of an area where I can see a potential reversal, and I want to make sure that I get out. All right, that'll be over here at 106.67. All right, and that's really what I'm looking for. Top side again would be the 108.50. Bottom side would be down here at 107.66. All right. So with that being said, guys, obviously tomorrow, huge news release day. Going into Thursday, kind of a similar situation. You have a lot of pound news. Again, I told you I'd lay out the week. This is Thursday, a lot of pound news. You have their bank rate, their monetary policy, their official bank, and again, Philly Fed manufacturing going into Thursday. And again, Friday, low day, it is CAD. Again, core retail sales, dollar CAD would be the pair to play in that one. And that kind of sets you guys up for the week. So with that being said, guys, we are finished. If you have any questions about anything that I mentioned today, you guys know, again, standard areas, you guys can reach me on Discord. You guys can reach me on email. You can go to the website, again, bounce around. Easiest way to catch me, that would definitely be Discord as a chat program that we use. If you guys want to check it out, it's absolutely free. You can jump in there, ask all the questions you want. But if you have a question, email me at support@keeptradingsimple.com. With that being said, I'm going to take off. Have a great week trading. I will see you guys next Monday. Have a great week. Have a great weekend, and see you guys then.